Hey everybody, welcome to Shark Scrapper Live, where every week we talk about precious metals, industrial metals, safety, and then miscellaneous issues, all revolving around the fantastic world of scrap and recycling that we enjoy. It's great to be here with you all. I'm looking forward to having a fun hour of chatting about interesting stuff that's been going on this week. Scrapping Irish was first in the chat there. Welcome. Anfield Road is listening while he's working on some projects. Roger at CU Scrapping, great to have you here. Let's see, anybody else in here yet? I don't see anybody else popping up here on the screen just yet, so that's fine. We'll have some more folks coming in as we go along. And we are going to, hey, Truck Fan, great to have you here, man. And Mike's Meltdown is here. Great to have y'all on board as we get going today. Our first subject is gold, as you can see, and holy bajoli is gold. Gold's doing well. Now, don't let this 3 day chart spook you. I mean, yeah, gold on the 3 day chart is down, but that's because look how high we are. We're in the 2,900 ranges, right? We're well over $2,900. So you can expect some variability in the 3 day chart. Here's the 1 week chart, and we are up 1.33% for the week. But one of the things that I really want to draw your attention to is look at how jagged this weekly chart is. I mean that there's been a lot of stuff happening in the gold world here. So let's take a look now at the month. And for the month, we're up slightly at 0.17. Let's just get right over here to the year, because this is where we really see what's going on. We are at record all-time highs out here for the year. I mean, it is really, really doing well for us. So let's head over to trading economics and take a look at our gold chart here, because we'll be able to pull up the candlesticks in a minute. But first, I want to just address what the folks at Trading Economics are commenting on here. There's been a lot of uncertainty. There's been some negative indicators on the U.S. economy. These kind of things drive gold prices. When there's uncertainty, when there's concerns, then investors will go to safe havens, and gold is the primary safe haven. So you can see that U.S. jobs report was down a little bit. Unemployment rose 4.1%. Wage growth ticked up a little bit. There's the surge on layoffs because of what the administration is doing. So you've got you've got some challenging economic data in the U.S. here, and then there's the tariff situation. In the U.S., tariffs are on again, they're off again. You've got retaliatory tariffs. You've got other nations, then Canada, Mexico, China, that are going to respond in some fashion with tariffs. All of this kind of stuff creates the uncertainty that causes investors to get out of the stock market, to get into safe haven kind of things. And like we said, gold is that thing. So that is what's been pushing gold up. And if we go here to the chart, we're going to pull up the candlesticks, and we can zoom in on the recent period here for, let's just go right here. Now we're at 1 year chart, and each candlestick represents a day of trading. And so you can see we've had a lot of these incremental green candlesticks pushing up, pushing up, pushing up. So right now, the market is, it's the weekend, so the market is trying to figure out what it's going to do, but it's going to keep going up. That I think is almost certain. And in fact, if we go back, here's the full year. Let's go back to the line chart again, and then let's go up here and pop up the forecast and look at that. I mean, this is just amazing to me that we're seeing trading economics and other indicators that are showing gold going over 3,000 an ounce. So, I mean, at over 3,000 an ounce, it's a pretty good selling opportunity. I mean, holy cow, that's just that is just that is definitely selling territory unless you are hanging on to your gold because you are one of those folks who believes that there's going to be a complete economic collapse and you anticipate going into a barter world where there's no dollars or won or yen or pounds or the typical government fiat currencies. But if you have gold and you're looking to make some money on it from when you bought it, then break over 3,000 might be a good time to sell. What does this mean for our scrap? Because that's the real reason that we're here, right? We want to talk about what do these kind of prices mean for our gold bearing material, for our scrap, for the work we're doing with gold. You should expect your yards to be paying some pretty good money right now for printed circuit boards, for RAM, for anything that's got gold bearing material in or on it. BoardSort.com increased their prices this week, and we have you can feel really good that those prices are going to hold or get better when you see these kind of forecasts, because when the big industrial buyers are looking at these prices, they see where the market's going, so they need to offer more because, well, we're going to want more, right? And they can get more for theirs. So we should expect to see some good solid prices for our circuit boards. If you have material that you have been hanging on to, it's probably a good idea to get that material sold. You might have an argument that says, well, but with a forecast going over 3,000, why don't I hold my boards? Why am I rushing to sell my material right now? And that's a legitimate question. The the whole my philosophy normally involves hanging on to some materials, selling the rest. You hang on to a strategic reserve. Now, the challenge you run into when prices are doing what they're doing right now is you're saying to yourself, well, should I sell now? But maybe the prices are going to keep going up. They're going to keep going up. Maybe I should hold for a bit before I sell. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. I think a big part of it's going to come into how quickly can you sell while you're watching this market, and how quickly is your buyer's price is going to react. A lot of the scrap yards can change their prices during the course of the day. So you might get a price in the morning, show up in the afternoon, and the prices will have changed. Other places, maybe they don't change but once a day or once a week. You need to know how your buyer regulates their prices so that you can judge what the risk is in holding this material. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to hold that material thinking you're going to get the top of the market, and then the market crashes down on the other side and you miss that high point. So you want to be kind of selling into it as it goes up. So if you're a little more risk tolerant, then maybe hang on to your stuff until gold goes over 3,000, and then take it in to sell. Now, as far as what I'm doing, I'm running a business here. I got to keep the cash flow going. So I am busy breaking down PCs. I've just brought in a couple of big loads this week. So I'm busy breaking down PCs, and I should probably have another Gaylord box full of material to ship off to BoardSort. Maybe this week, maybe next week. So for me, I keep the stuff moving. I might keep a little bit behind, but otherwise I keep things moving because, I got to pay the bills. So that's what's happening. Let's see, what are you all planning on doing? And let's see who else has joined us while I was talking about gold. We have Luke Richardson, Earl Fowler, Mr. Matthews. Welcome, everybody. HH Recycling. Great to have you all here. David Feely is in the house now. Let's see who else I saw. Monica, welcome. Great to have you here. So what are we talking about for gold? Who's doing what with gold while we're on the subject? Everybody's saying hi. Everybody. Yeah. Yeah. Mike's making a good point. Businesses hate uncertainty. Metals love it. Well, yeah. I mean, the businesses that deal with metals, they may not like it, but yeah, metals like it. I mean, the uncertainty drives up the prices for sure. Mr. Matthews is talking about brass being up. We can address brass when we talk about copper here if you want. Let's see. Mike just bought some nitric acid. Must be getting ready to do a little refining going on there. Probably that's what I'm guessing. Um, yeah, Roger's making a comment similar to what I said. He'd love to hold on to his boards while looking at the chart, but he's got bills to pay. So yeah, I mean, there's rent and there's utilities and there's insurance and all the other costs associated with running a business or doing what you do. And every once in a while, you even want to give yourself some money, huh? Uh, let's see. Anybody else doing anything with gold going on here? Mr. Matthews is making the comment that he seems to sell just before the prices rise. Yeah, one of the ways that you can help yourself there a little bit is to maybe not sell everything every week. Sell a little bit each week, and that way, when prices are rising, you will get more, and then when they drop off, you won't have necessarily lost what you didn't sell before. So that's the opposite of what when investors talk about dollar cost averaging, when they buy a little bit of the same stock every week, not trying to catch the high, but taking advantage of the market shifts, and sort of same kind of thing with selling scrap. Um, Luke Richardson has said that he pulled some gold out for the White Hat app tonight. Okay. Uh, and yes, Ian, sometimes space is worth more. Sometimes you have no choice but to sell things in order to make room. Absolutely right on that one. Um, oh, and Roger's got his licenses coming up. Yeah, that's those can be rough. The vehicle licenses, a trailer license, all those kind of things. They can add up. They really can. Um, let's see. Okay, so gold, our circuit boards are up. So um, definitely want to try to get your value off for your gold there for sure. Okay, well, our next subject that we are going to talk about is fire safety. Now, as you all know, every week I look for things that occurred during the week to help me come up with an idea for our safety discussion. No, we did not have a fire at the shark cage, but we do have a lot of wildfires going on around the United States right now, and some up in Canada. Um, and some of those wildfires are here in North Carolina. So it seemed like an appropriate thing to talk about fire and fire safety. Now, there's a number of issues around fire and fire safety that we all need to think about. There's the home and there's your workplace. And those can frequently be two different things, because your workplace, especially if it's a industrial or light industrial kind of facility, has the opportunity for greater fire risk than at the home. So, probably the first thing that you want to do, just like any kind of activity, is you want to do a risk assessment. So, at your home or your shop or at work, the first thing you do is a fire risk assessment. What has the potential to cause a fire here? And then what am I going to do about that? So in the home, you obviously have the potential for electrical fires, for cooking related fires, oil and grease and such, and not as great a risk for what they call a class A, the wood materials fire, because those normally have to get started by something else. But the other real danger in the home that a lot of people don't think of is the that spare can of gas or oil or thinner or those kind of chemicals that you have stored in your garage. They can become especially volatile during a hot summer, but they can be a fire hazard on their own right. And now add into that, many of the devices that we have in our homes carry lithium batteries, which present their own fire challenges. So you do your risk assessment, and if you're at work or at a business, you look around the same kind of thing. And you may, depending upon the size of your company, you may have an employee whose job is safety analysis, and they will have already done these kind of things. Once you identify the potential for the type of fire that you could have, then you can plan what type of fire extinguisher or safety system you want to make sure that you have available. So we're going to pop over and take a real quick look at the different classes of fires and the types of extinguishers and materials, things that you want to have. So you have your Class A fire, which is trash and plastics and solids. All right, so not metals, but wood and those kind of things. A Class B fire is your flammable liquids, so gasoline and oil and greases and paints and that sort of stuff. Class C is an electrical fire, energized electrical equipment. Class D is metals, so this is your magnesium, your titanium, your lithium. And it's a special kind of fire extinguisher when you're dealing with those. And then I like how they have added this K class for combustible cooking, because that's a little bit different than the oil or gasoline or whatever. It's still a burning liquid, but it's the fats and stuff from associated with cooking. You want to make sure that you have the appropriate fire extinguisher or extinguishers for the type of potential fire that you could have. There are fire extinguishers out there these days that are ABC certified fire extinguishers. They tend to be dry chemical. And of course, the idea behind the dry chemical is that the dry chemical gets on, disrupts the fire triangle. Heat, fuel, oxygen is what you need to sustain a fire. And so with a chemical fire extinguisher, it gets in there and it breaks that, it sets up a barrier between the heat, the fuel, and the oxygen so it can't continue to burn. A CO2 fire extinguisher removes the air. So the challenge that you have with a CO2 fire extinguisher is that if the CO2 extinguisher runs out and it's still a well-ventilated area, you could have a reflash. So you want to think about that issue with if you have a CO2 extinguisher. Usually for the home situation, a ABC rated fire extinguisher is probably going to be your best bet. And remember, if you have a Class C fire, if something is plugged in and it catches fire, the first thing you want to do is unplug it or de-energize it. Now, of course, be careful. You don't want to burn yourself pulling a plug out of the wall, and you don't want to electrocute yourself. So maybe the thing to do is to go to the switch panel and open the breaker, or in Ian's case, pull the fuse. So really important to understand where your fuse box is, where your power breakers are. At work, know where your switch panels are so that you can quickly and easily de-energize electrical equipment should it catch fire. Lithium fires present a very challenging situation because lithium ion batteries burn differently than other lithium chemical batteries. And so you really get into a lot of back and forth on what you should do to put out a lithium fire. The best guidance that I saw was actually basically it just said, call your emergency services. You know, it's, all right. If it's a really small, very small battery, your laptop or something like that, and it catches fire, you might be successful with an ABC rated fire extinguisher. Um, you, you depending upon your situation, uh, putting it in a bucket of water can that doesn't stop the fire. Lithium burns with water, but it can help to keep the battery or the thing that's burning cool enough that the rest of the cells won't run away. But there's a lot of risks associated with that because you can cause it to accelerate. You can have an explosion. You're going to generate toxic fumes. So that's not something that you want to do unless you're outside or you've got it. You'll see firemen do that because they're going to have hoses that are putting out a lot of water and they'll be wearing respirators. So uh, they will do that as a way to control that lithium fire. They they have the fire departments have some real problems, real challenges with lithium fires, especially if it's a lithium vehicle, battery powered vehicle, because those things really can run away and create some hellacious fires. And one of the best things that you're going to do with that is you just want to keep the battery cool so that the rest of the cells don't run away. If you Probably the safest, the best thing to do is if you're using a lithium powered device and you feel it getting really warm. I mean, if it's getting hot to the touch, turn it off. Take the battery out, let the battery set outside somewhere where it can cool down. If at all possible, put it in some sort of fire proof or fire retardant type, like a metal bucket or something of that nature, so that if it does catch fire, it won't spread as easily. And for those of us that have lithium batteries at our shops, the best thing that you can do is keep those. Don't let the batteries accumulate. And when they do accumulate, try to keep them in a metal container as best you can. And if you can put them in a dual metal container, that's even better, so that you've got additional protection for the batteries. So lithium is a just one of those things that we have to deal with. They also have on the market, I've seen, they're called lithium blankets. They're fire blankets that you can put over the fire to help keep the fire under control, help remove the oxygen or decrease the oxygen to the fire. So a fire blanket is another thing that you may want to look for. Um, Fire detectors. If you have you I'm pretty sure that just about everybody in this stream has smoke detectors at your home. Smoke detectors can either do smoke. Well, smoke detector does smoke, but there's also heat detectors, and there's also carbon monoxide detectors. So make sure you understand what it is you have at your house. And if you have a older detector that is using batteries, whether they're the D cells or the triple A's or double A's, yeah, I mean, I don't think any have triple A's. I think they're double A's or the square 9 volt, rectangular 9 volts. The latest guidance is to change them every 6 months. A lot of the new detectors are coming out with, and this is kind of funny, lithium batteries that are supposed to be good for 10 years. Um, so that way you don't ever have to change the battery because a detector is only good for 10 years. So the battery is as good as the life of the detector. And That's good to know, because that way when you put up a new detector that has the new lithium batteries, there you don't have to worry about changing them out. And it seems to me like the batteries in the smoke detectors always go bad around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't know of any that go bad in the middle of the day. So it's something about smoke detectors that only go bad at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Um, let's see. The other thing that you want to be thinking about is if you go to a hotel. Um, and I know this sounds a little bit like almost anal retentive, but when you go to a hotel, when you get to your hotel room, just take a minute and do a conscious effort to look at the map that they'll have on the door to the hotel, or when you're in the hallway, and look for that fire exit and say to yourself, if there's a fire, when I come out of the door to my hotel room, I need to turn left or I need to turn right, whichever direction it is, to get to that fire escape. You want to have this in your mind because if there's a fire and there's heavy smoke, you may not be able to orient yourself by sight. So you may be down on the floor, staying as low as you can, and you may not be able to just get oriented as to which way should I go. So if you have said to yourself a couple of times when right after you check in, all right, if I have to evacuate, come out of the door and go left, you'll be able to do that even with your eyes closed because you'll go to the door and you'll know your left from your right, and that way you'll know you're headed to a fire escape. And then the fire escapes at most modern hotels here in the U.S. anyway have very brightly lit signs, so it's a really important thing to keep in mind. And it only takes a couple minutes when you get to a hotel to just consciously say to yourself, what direction is the fire escape? And that that kind of thing can save your life if you're traveling. And then of course, I don't need to tell anybody about how to escape from an airplane because there's flight attendants that will tell you that 17,000 times during the course of a flight. So all right. Well, let's see what you all are talking about when it comes to fire safety here. Let's see. I'm going up here. We had some. Okay. Let's see. Mike was saying he feels like he's back at boot camp talking about fire safety and fire training. Well, I tell you what, we did. I mean, we do so much training. In the Navy when it comes to fires because you're on a ship out at sea, you're on a submarine at sea, you got to put that fire out. I mean, you are the people putting the fire out. So yeah, we used to train and train and train on fires. Let's see, Roger's saying that part of his previous job was maintenance supervisor for a major bank. I was also the safety officer. He has MSDS folders on the house and the shop. Really? Now Roger, you got me beat, man, because I do not have MSDS folders at my shop, much less my house. So, man, you're taking it to an entirely new extreme there, buddy. Monica's asking if anybody has ever had to use a fire blanket. So I don't know. We'll see if anybody comments on it. I have never had to use a fire blanket, so I can't help you there. Uh, Richard is saying that his wife is a terrible cook. He keeps several fire extinguishers within reach and a fire blanket. And he wishes he had more insurance. Oh man, that's funny. Yeah, restaurants, of course, over their deep fat fryers, they have a chemical extinguisher system that will put foam down over top of the deep fat fryers. And it would always be funny aboard ship when we would have a drill, and the drill was a deep fat fryer fire because the poor bosun, he would sound the alarm, and then on the announcing system, he'd be on the 1MC. That's the announcing system, and he'd say, "Fire, fire, fire! There's a deep fat fire, fire, fire!" You could just, I mean, they would kind of get it screwed up, and then of course you're laughing the whole way as you're responding to the fire. Um, so yeah, that was Mike probably remembers those days as well. Uh, HH is saying it's easy to keep the batteries cool there. Yeah, wintertime and up north, it's easy to keep things cool there, huh? Um, and new detectors are hardwired to the house. Yep. Yeah, that's a big deal. And it might be, one of those things that if you have an older house and it hasn't been wired up yet, maybe seeing how much that would cost to get them wired up like that. And I don't know. I know that when I sold the house down in Florida last year, um, my detectors were new enough that they did not have to get replaced, and it was part of a central alarm system, like an ADT system. So we were okay there. But, where I was going with that is depending upon the age of your house, if you go to sell your house, you may have to do something to upgrade your smoke detectors. Andrew Powell joining us from New Zealand. Welcome, sir. Great to have you here. Let's see. Richard was joking around with some of his batteries, but in all seriousness, he's taken them to the hazardous drop off. Yeah, that's really important. Don't let them accumulate. It's if you have one battery fire is bad enough, but if it's in with a whole bunch of other batteries and they all catch fire, it's going to be nasty. Monica's uses rechargeable batteries, which is a good way to, as she says, keep batteries out of the waste stream. So I'm guessing, Monica, what you're saying is that you have the batteries that are in there, and you have another set that are recharging, and then you can swap them out and recharge them. So, yeah, I have to take a look here, and I can't believe I haven't done this yet. But I need to take a look and see if I've got the new lithium batteries here, because this house, the previous owners did a lot of work on this house before we bought the place. So I want to look into that. So Richard decided to see what would happen with one of his batteries. Yeah, I don't recommend messing around with them like that, because that can be a little bit tricky. But hey, I get it. They're really interesting fires to watch. I have seen them when I was working in underwater robotics. We did some testing with the Navy with lithium ion batteries and various chemistries, just to have a good understanding of how bad they burn and things like that. So yeah, it's a pretty impressive fire. It can be very impressive, and the smoke is like, it gets into everything, of course, and it's nasty, and it leaves this nasty residue on everything, and yeah, it's not a good thing. Um, yeah, Daniel Winger, welcome, Daniel. Great to have you here, and you're pulling on Ian's chain about Ian. Oh man, it's like every time I see Ian's shop, I'm just like, one of these days he's going to be dead, because he's got his fire, his that wood burning stove that he uses to heat the place is right by the door. And so if that thing ever was to cause the fire, he would be trapped inside there. He'd have to run through the fire to get out of the building. That's always been one of those things that I'm like, oh, Ian, I mean, I get it. I understand, you're somewhat limited in what you can do there, but man, that's just risky. Um, Jay Wall says, my husband is a fire door inspector. It's so fun to go to the hotel with them. Yeah, I bet it'd be like, going to a if you were married to a fireman, it's like you can't, it's like married to a fireman, nobody has the right fire protection. I'm married to a chef, and so every restaurant we go to doesn't measure up. Well, actually, that's not true. My wife is not one of these uh, chefs that talks down about everybody else's food. She actually loves a lot of the restaurants up here, and the with the quality and the fun of the food. But I can just imagine what that must be like if you're married to somebody who, or your partner is someone who's really into the safety or fire as their profession. Um, Yeah, Mike's commenting about the stuff on the fire on the one MC there. Uh, yeah, I suppose Homer. By the way, welcome Homer. Great to have you here. Deep fryer fire. That might be an interesting YouTube channel name too, right? I mean, hey, what was that YouTube channel? I said, this was a really cool channel. I watched this guy. Let's see that channel. Oh, his name was. Oh yeah, Deep Fryer Fire. Oh man. Uh, and Daniel's got a very good point. If you use a fire blanket, that fire wants to find a way to get out. So you don't want to be at the edge of that blanket where the fire is going to try to get out. So yeah, make sure you read the instructions on a fire blanket really well, and have a good idea of what you're going to do there. Um, And Roger's commenting about how the restaurants have suppressors that are good, but they also cause the grease to boil over and get all over the floor. Yeah, I certainly wouldn't want to be around one when it cuts loose. And that's an important thing with if you spray water on a fire, that's why you don't put water on a Class B or a Class K fire, because you're going to spread it out. So yeah, that's a big one there. Uh, bu- 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 So yeah, a lot of good discussions there on fire safety, really important. I encourage everybody to, just give it a quick thought in your mind. If you haven't taken a walk through your house or your shop recently, go ahead and take a few minutes sometime during the week and do that, because um, you you don't want to be thinking about the fire when there's a fire. You want to be thinking about it well ahead. And that's why we practice and train in the Navy so hard for fires, because we want to be able to react. We want muscle memory to help us react to that fire and whatever the damage is, and save ourselves and the ship. We don't want to have to think right away. We want to be able to react. You can think later on after you start reacting. Okay, so it is time to move on to the next subject of the day, and that is copper. Man, oh man, oh man, are we loving what's going on with copper? Holy cow! I mean, here let's take a look at this. Look at this chart. We had copper up here at over $5 on back in May of 2024. Look where we are now. We had been right up at 478. We're at 480, 468 ish. I have been talking to some folks that are big into the copper trading world, and they're saying it's going over five. There's no doubt about it. It's going over five. And this is going to be important for us. Let's see if we can get an idea of what's driving these copper prices. So um, futures remained above 470 a pound. This was as of Friday. Highest level in months, as Donald Trump suggested he could impose 25% tariffs on copper imports. So remember, up till now, this administration was not talking about copper tariffs, but then during his joint session the presentation, he threw that out there, and so of course the markets have all responded to it, as that's what happens, and prices surged 5%, over 5%. So we're going to see copper climbing here, and here in the United States, one of the big issues is that we import over 50% of our copper. We only have two major smelters here in the U.S. Remember, a smelter is the recovery of the copper from the ore. When you're smelting something, that's you're getting the metal from the ore, and so we only have two of those here in the U.S. So what does that mean for us, and why is this so important to us as scrappers? Well, if you take the combination of there's only two smelters in the U.S. to produce virgin copper, that means that recycled copper is going to be a huge deal. And copper is a really good metal for recycling, similar to aluminum, because there are various grades of copper. There's various alloys of copper. It's like in brass and things that it has a lot of uses. It is, probably the number one metal of an industrialized nation is copper. And, it doesn't mean that there isn't aluminum and steel and stuff, but you're not going to be an industrial nation without copper. So for us in the scrap and recycling world, these kind of prices are really good because the prices for our scrap copper are just going to continue to improve. I'm gonna, instead of looking at the candlesticks here, because we know copper's been climbing. Let's just jump right into the forecast here for copper. And if we take a real quick look here at the forecast for copper, look at that. I even put it in nice big bold. Let's get this up so it's taking up most of the screen. And let's take that line down a little bit. Oops. Come on, you. What did I do? There we go. That's what I want. And then that's what I want. And then that's what I want. Sometimes my fingers get away from me, but look at that. Well over 5. We're looking at 5, 10-ish, 5, 5, 10-ish, something like that in that forecast. So that's a real sweet forecast for copper. And I don't see any reason why it won't happen. And the people that I spoke to during the week that are big into copper trading, they're all, they're all looking at this. And understand, for these large industrial traders, this is not a good thing because their margins really don't get much better when these prices go up like this. I know that it's easy for us as the small time scrapper recycler to think that this is really good for, the big industrial traders, but this really plays havoc on their margins and their profits. To also remember that for a lot of the scrap yards and the big industrial traders, they have contracts that they're satisfying where they have agreed to various prices, and so their buyer may only be obligated to pay them a certain price that is not what the market is allowing, depending upon how far in advance they have their contracts out. So there's good news and bad news depending upon the situation and how savvy your yards are. But I think for the most part, for us as scrappers and recyclers, this is a good thing. And this is why you've been hanging on to that 10%. This is why I've always said to people, you sell your low grade copper, you keep at least 10% of your high grade copper behind and try to take advantage of these higher prices. So this is where you want to be watching for these higher prices. Check in with your yard, look for their prices to go up. And if they go up above 5, then that's saying something, because if the spot's going for 5 and your yard is going for 5, you've really hit it well there. And that's the other thing. Just because spot prices go over $5 a pound, don't expect your yards to be able to match that, because, it's scrap copper. It's not the virgin ore spot copper. So still a lot of good prices going on. I got as an example of where these are real prices this week. I wanted to get some real prices from my yard, so I took in some copper. My ICW number 2, $1.10 a pound, and my Bear Bright was $3.50 a pound. So curious to see what you all got out there from your yards this week, if anybody took it in, or if you're still holding and you're going to try to get more. I did not take in all my stuff. I kept I kept a good chunk of Bear Bright and number one behind in anticipation of the prices going up even more. And I'm gonna be watching to see what happens. My yard is a little bit tricky because we're kind of up here in the mountains, and there's a lot of transportation costs from here. It's not like when I was in Jacksonville, a big city with you know local mills and really good prices locally. So I can't expect to get the same kind of prices that probably a lot of you all are going to see out there. All right. So, what are you all doing and getting for copper? Let's see. Ed Weber, hey, welcome. Great to have you here, man. Good to see you. All righty. Mike has a good point here. This is a real good. This is going back to the fire safety. 5 gallon buckets with lid only for the shop fire battery storage. Aboard ship, we would have metal buckets with lids, and you would put your oily rags in there. It would help to prevent the oily rags from flashing off to fire. So yeah, metal buckets, lids are good to keep that contained. All right, what's going on with copper? Copper. Roger said he got a bit of wire I'm getting to strip tonight. Okay, good. Let's see. Bear Bright at the beginning of last week at his yard was 375. Very cool. That's a good price. Um, Richard is talking about what he's been getting. Richard does a lot of his own gold recovery, and so he was sharing. He was sharing prices there for the stuff that he got. Those are some. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, and that's one of the things too. I mean, I'll just use Richard's comment here um, as a home refiner. The odds are we're not going to get spot price for gold that we have recovered. The people that are buying our gold, they're, you know, if they know you really well, they might give you better prices, but it's really hard to get spot because, you're not necessarily as pure or proven as pure as a known refiner. So a a U.S. mint, a Perth mint, Canadian mint, Royal mint, or a mint like Sunshine. Those folks, when they stamp a bar as 0.99 or 0.999 or 0.9999, the buyers have good reason to believe that mark, that purity mark. Whereas, and I'm not saying anything against Richard here at all. This is just the reality for home refiners is that most places are not going to necessarily trust your quality. They'll test it and they may still, and they may give you a good price for it after they've tested the quality or the purity of your gold. But they also just, for them, they're probably not going to pay spot. I have heard of people that sold to jewelers, and the jewelers paid pretty well for that gold from the home refiners. So that's another possibility. Daniel says that his yard indicator copper is going up, and that let's see, their grading is what was number one and a lot of number two. Okay. Sixth Street Garage, welcome. Great to have you here. Okay, yeah. So you sold it at 20 below, and then after they assay it, you'll probably get more. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Makes perfectly good sense. That's a and it's interesting too because the same thing happens when frequently when we sell a large volume of printed circuit boards. So, and this is the world that I'm getting into now with Mint Innovation. Um, when I unlike when I sell boards to board sort, where they will say, it's you know, a gold or a green metal socket, small motherboard. Here's the price. With Mint Innovation, when I sell them a complete Gaylord of boards, um, what will happen is we'll have an initial price that they'll pay me. And then after they assay the load, because that's what they'll do, they'll assay the load. They will they'll either pull part of the load, or they'll run the batch load, and then they'll assay the value of the materials that they've recovered, and then I might get a bonus from that if it turned out to be a better than expected load. This is not at all uncommon in larger scrap yards. That's the way a lot of the bigger yards sell their material to the next stage on. So we sell to someone like a board sword, a consolidator of the material. They put it all together into large truckloads of the material. They sell it to a refining mill, and that mill assays the load and pays accordingly. So it's not at all uncommon for someone like a board sort to not even get anything for maybe 3 or 4 months after they ship that load, because it's got to get to the plant, it's got to wait its turn in line, then get assayed, and then they get paid. So for the larger places like board sort, there can be some significant lag between shipping a load of material and getting paid for that material. Unlike for us small time scrappers, when we sell the board sort, we know what we're going to get. And the only time delay is how long it takes to get that box to board sort, and then have board sort confirm the weight and the type of material, which is, usually within a week. Excuse me. Let's see. Ed says he got 350 for copper number 2, 370 for copper number 1, and 390 for Bear Bright. Very cool. Very cool. I know I'm going to be in this world of being jealous about what everybody's getting now, because up here in the mountains, I can't expect my yard to pay as much as what a lot of people are going to get. So I'm really expecting to be jealous of everybody's prices. Um, and it looks like Monica's out of here. Monica, it was great to have you join us. I really appreciate it. You have a safe week. And Ed says he's in East Tennessee. So you're actually and now we can get to you because they've gotten 40 reopened. So, Ed, I wonder which way your material is going. That's interesting. So, because I think most of our material here is going east. But I need to talk with my yard owner a bit more and understand that a little bit better. Yeah, so real good discussion of copper and things that are going on. I do want to talk now a little bit about two very interesting companies that showed up in the stock world. So, you all, for those of you that don't know, and just a reminder for those of you that have been with me for a while, I subscribe to this thing called the Value Line Investment Survey. They do not take any advertising. So when they analyze a stock, a company, it's pure numbers and the publicly available information. And when they talk to when the companies have their trading calls and share information. So, but they're not beholden to any advertisers to spin the discussion. So it's just really good, unbiased information about what's going on with the stocks. This week's survey included electric utilities for the central part of the U.S., telecommunications services, telecommunications equipment, toiletries and cosmetics, cable TV industry, engineering companies. So, of all the companies that were in this week's issue, there were two that I thought really stand out for folks to give some consideration to. And the first one I want to bring to your attention is Verizon. Now, again, I'm not here telling you that Verizon is a good phone company or that you should have a Verizon service. That's not my point here. My point is to talk about Verizon as a potential investment. Now, remember, I'm a very boring investor. I had a couple of people ask me about this, pointed out in comments during the week about when I talk about investments. I'm a dividend investor. I do not have the time to pay attention on a regular basis to whether stocks are going up or going down. I don't want to be a day trader. I'm not a trader. I am an investor. And so I want to be very boring. I want to buy a stock that is going to cast off regular dividends that I know are going to continue to go up over time. So the way I do this is I look back for the last 17 years or more, and I want a company to have been increasing primarily for my concerns. I want them to have been increasing their dividends per share for the last 17 years or more. I will allow a flat year and still have them in the consideration, but that's about all. I also look at their cash flow per share and their earnings per share as a part of the consideration, but my primary concern is in here with their dividends per share. All right, so Verizon, their ticker symbol is VZ, and look at this yield, 6.3%. And that's on $43.32. So that's a really good combination for small time investors because it's a reasonable price and it's a very good dividend. So, and as you can see from the data, they are qualified by my account as what I call a Div 1. So that means they had this one flat year here, 16 to 17. If we take a look at what that looks like graphically, we can see here's this gold line is the dividend as it climbed every year, and it's not jagged, it's not bouncing, it's a nice smooth, always going up. That's exactly the kind of stock that I am interested in. Their cash flow and their earnings per share also climbing, had some ups and downs, but not nearly as bad as we've seen from a lot of other companies. So it's a very good company to keep an eye on. Now, because I like to be as transparent as possible, I will tell you that I do not own any Verizon right now. But as I am slowly moving out of the had to save all of my money, get all my cash to move, to buy a house, to get the business going, as I am now moving into the world of things are settling down and I can start thinking about investing again, I am giving very serious thought to investing in Verizon. Um, Verizon is also really well liked by the folks at Value Line. Their assessment of Verizon talks about the capital investments that Verizon is going to be making. They also have a big acquisition that is in the works that's going to require quite a bit of cash. But they do believe that it's still a good long term dividend or income oriented investment. So, um, excuse me, I am sorry. So they say that momentum seeking accounts can certainly find more alluring alternatives elsewhere. I love how they word these things. What they're saying there is if you want to buy and then sell it in the near term to make money, this isn't the company you're interested in. But the Verizon stock offers worthwhile capital appreciation potential through 2028 to 2030. And income seeking investors will be delighted with the issue's dividend yield, which is 3 times that of the Value Line Investment Survey average, which is, all the companies that they look at. So a really good dividend stock for you to consider. Now, another company that I found was interesting for you all to give some thought to is Comcast. The dividend is only 3.4. It's a little less expensive than Verizon at 36.30. But if you look at their numbers, they are qualified from a cash flow perspective. So Their cash flow has gone up every year except one. And they are a div zero, which means their dividend has increased every year for the last 17 years. They've had zero hits on their dividend. So they're, from the perspective of the way I analyze the stock, this one is more favorable, except they're not paying as much for a dividend. If we look at this graphically, we can see again there's a nice smooth upward curve to their dividend. And if you look at the cash flow and earnings, they've only had this one bad year here. So it's a little, it even looks better than Verizon. Again, in the being as transparent as possible, I do not own Comcast, and I'm not going to buy Comcast at this point. If I do buy anything in the near term, it's going to be Verizon. Boy, I really picked up a tickle in my throat. So I guess it's a good thing that our hour is about up. Remember, if you have autoplay enabled, you will be automatically redirected to Ireland, where we will join Scrapping Irish and continue the discussion or go in new directions. Never know what's going to happen when we go over to Ireland. So if you do not have autoplay enabled, I encourage you to go to YouTube, go up to that search bar, type in Scrapping Irish, and click the link to join us in his live stream. And I look forward to seeing you over on the pond. Maybe we'll keep going along with what we're talking here. Maybe we will talk about something new. You just never know what's going to happen over there. Take care. Have a safe week. And don't forget, do your fire safety walkthrough. Don't forget. Make sure it happens. I don't want to have to ask you next week if you did your fire safety walkthrough. All right, everybody. We'll see you.